Hi everyone, Amanda here. I've got two quick reminders for you before we jump into today's episode. Firstly, the Peaceful Communities webinar. At midday on the 30th of August, I'll be teaching you how you can use bylaws to restore peace to your strata community. Sounds good, doesn't it? I have been absolutely bowled over by the response to this webinar. So many of you are registered to attend. I'm talking in the hundreds. Tapping into the power of bylaws really is the hot topic that I predicted it would be. On this webinar, I'll be talking about the notice to comply and tribunal penalty order process. I'll be talking interesting cases, examples of buildings using bylaws in really creative ways to ensure peaceful community living. If you're not registered to attend and you want to be, why wouldn't you want to be? Head over to yspwebinar.com. Thursday, the 30th of August, midday. It'll run for 1 hour. We will be done by 1 p.m. Grab an early lunch, spend it with me. I'd like to spend it with you. Secondly, the membership doors are closing. I announced this in some detail at the beginning of last week's episode. So if you want the nitty-gritty on membership close, head back there, episode 125. All I'm saying today is that by the end of Sunday, the 2nd of September, it will no longer be possible to simply join the YSP membership and gain all the member-only benefits. The doors will be closed and I do not know if or when I will open them again. Many of you have, very cleverly, heeded this call and signed up for membership while you still can. If you are still vacillating on this, you haven't got much time left. Sunday, the 2nd of September is D-Day on the membership. You don't want to be on the other side of those doors when they're closed and you have a strata problem that you want me to personally solve for you. That's what I'm doing for members right now, and that's what I want to continue to focus on. Hence the closing of the doors. Find out more about how you can join us on the inside over at yourstrataproperty.com.au/membership. Today's episode, Kimberly Crawford of the City of Sydney Council. I have bumped up Kimberly's episode. Some of you may have been expecting to hear Rena and I this week. I bumped it up because Kimberly has some important news and some pressing deadlines relating to the Smart Green Apartments program. So listen carefully if you want to get involved in that one. And Rena and I will be back next week for our usual wins and challenges. Catch you then.
Welcome to Your Strata Property, the podcast for property owners looking for reliable, accurate and bite-sized information from an experienced and authoritative source. To access previous episodes and useful strata tips, go to www.yourstrataproperty.com.au.
Hello and welcome. I'm Amanda Farmer and this is Your Strata Property. Kimberly Crawford is the Program Manager of the City of Sydney's Smart Green Apartments program. She works collaboratively with owners corporations, strata managers and building managers to improve the environmental and economic efficiency of strata buildings. Kimberly has a strong interest in the design, delivery and evaluation of sustainability behaviour change programs, which she's previously utilised across the not-for-profit and corporate sectors. She has a commitment to lifelong learning, holding a Masters of Environment and has recently commenced a PhD in Sustainable Futures Studies. Today, I'm delighted to welcome the very qualified Kimberly Crawford. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thanks, Amanda. It's great to be here.
Lovely to have you on the show. And having just started a PhD, I'm amazed that you are working, studying and making time to chat with us on the podcast. That's amazing.
Thank you. It's busy, but it's all really, really good things to be working on. So definitely feel inspired to be working in sustainability. So that's the main thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a good time and a hot topic. We talk about it a fair bit on the podcast. And I have always had knowledge of this Smart Green Apartments concept and that there was a program out there, but I've never really dug very deeply into exactly what it is. I know there's some fabulous buildings out there doing great things with City of Sydney. So I thought I'd get you on and have a chat with us about the program. So let's kick off. Tell us a bit about it. How did the initiative come about? How does it work?
The Smart Green Apartments program really came about because the City of Sydney recognised that so many of our residents are actually living in strata communities. In fact, in our local government area, it's around 80% of our residents live in apartment buildings. So it became really apparent that we actually need to do something to help these communities save costs, but also reduce their environmental footprint. And along with that, experience other benefits like improved livability and increased resale value of their properties. So to that end, Smart Green Apartments was piloted about 5 years ago now by the City of Sydney, and we worked with a number of buildings there to test out the different elements of the program before it was launched in its current form in 2016. So what we actually do is work with 20 strata communities or buildings each year, and the council's committed to doing that for a 10-year period. So it's actually around 8,000 residents that we're working with annually, which is quite cool, bit of a challenge, but it's really great. And essentially what we're looking to do is improve the environmental efficiency of these buildings, but in doing so, really reduce costs for our owners and help them, work collaboratively together on a really positive and proactive initiative. The program actually is quite comprehensive. There's several different elements involved, but essentially we send in lots of trusted experts to the building to work with the owners' corporations, the strata manager and the building manager. We deliver energy audits and recommendations, and we help get them approved and implemented as well, which is often the big challenge. We help these communities monitor the energy and water they're using, improve waste management, increase recycling, and also upskill and train all of the different people who are in those strata communities to make really good decisions for the future. So offer a lot of upskilling and capacity building programs as well.
Wow, that sounds like huge value that's being provided, and I heard there are so many areas there that we can dig into. I want to just track back to clarify. You mentioned 20 buildings is the intake for your program. Is that something you open the program every year and take 20 buildings who you then commit to work with for 10 years? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so we open the program each year and we take 20 buildings, which can often be many more strata plans, of course, because we are often working with the really complex sites with multiple strata plans and that sort of thing. And then we work with them intensively for a year. But then after that time, they become part of our leadership network or our alumni, if you like, and we continue to have that relationship and support with them into the future. So support doesn't really end. We just continue to work with them on an ongoing basis. But yes, it's an annual intake, and we're lucky enough to be launching our new round in October, but applications have just opened this week. So very timely to be having this discussion.
Yeah, definitely. Applications open, I think it was the 6th of August.
Yeah.
And at the time this episode goes to air, we'll be a couple of weeks past that. But the important date to remember, I think, is a September date, Kimberly, when the applications close.
That's right. So the important date to remember is the 14th of September when our applications close. It's a fairly straightforward process. I mean, there is an application form that's all online at smartgreenapartments.com.au. And you'll also find information to share with other building stakeholders there too. So a flyer that can be shared amongst owners and strata managers, of course. And basically in that application, we're asking about the features of the building. We're asking some information about the structure in terms of how many strata plans you have and whether there's a building management committee, things like that. And then what we can do is make a really sound evaluation of all of those applications to decide which buildings that we're going to work with on that intensive basis. It's not all bad news if buildings don't get into the program. We have a really comprehensive grants scheme at the City of Sydney as well. So even for the buildings who are unsuccessful, we can assist them to apply for funding in other ways. We're really just about working with as many strata communities as we can.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and City of Sydney in particular, I take my hat off to for its interest and engagement with their strata communities. And you also have your Strata Skills 101 program, which we can touch on later as well. But you just mentioned their funding and grants. That's on my list of questions here to ask you. What is it in that intensive first year that City of Sydney is providing for buildings? Are they providing funding? Are they contracting with service providers? How does it work in practice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So basically, we invest quite a significant amount of money into each of the buildings. And what that money goes towards funding is an expert energy auditor who actually works really intensively with each community to identify, okay, where are there really strong opportunities for improvement? And those might be upgrades, but they also might be really easy operational improvements that can be made at low to no cost. The really great thing about the program is that that expert, along with city staff, will, engage with the strata committees, the owners corporation as a whole, and really work to assist with implementation. So we'll provide support in obtaining quotes, analysing the financial business cases, and all of those things which often can prevent projects actually getting off the ground. The funding also sets each building up on an online data platform. And what that does is allow buildings to see, okay, this is actually what we're using from an energy and water perspective, and really interestingly respond more quickly when there's a problem. So often if there's a massive leak, for example, we don't know about that unless it's obvious.
Until the water starts flowing through to everybody's apartments.
Until the water starts flowing through, or until you get your bill, which can be a month or so later. And in that time, you might have wasted lots of money and water, of course. So these sort of systems help you spot something straight away and address it. We also fund a NABERS rating. So some people might be aware that stands for the National Australian Built Environment Rating System, which is a mouthful, but essentially is a star rating that lets a community know this is where we sit in terms of how much energy and water we use. And also this is sort of how we compare to others. So it's a really good way to plan for the future.
Yep.
We also work with buildings on improving recycling, setting up different waste management opportunities such as textile bins and things like that. And finally provide training events and capacity building workshops and the like to building managers, owners, strata managers. So it's quite a comprehensive program actually with a lot that we offer to each of those buildings.
Yeah, definitely. Do you find the application process is very hotly contested? You have a lot of buildings vying to get in?
We do have a lot of buildings vying to get in, and which is great. It's really good to see that appetite and interest. I think people are recognising that environmental efficiency means better operating buildings and lower cost buildings as well. So we do, and we're really looking for a range of different apartment buildings. So your single tower, one strata plan, right up to your mixed use building, even buildings who are part of community associations as well. So we're committed to working with a whole range of different setups.
Excellent. Now, you have been running the program for a couple of years. No doubt you've got some success stories, some case studies. Can you share a little bit about a smart green apartment? What do they look like when they come out the other side of this process?
A smart green apartment is obviously environmentally efficient and using resources really efficiently. It's also one, I guess, that's investigated other ways to get energy. So we've got a lot of buildings who are looking at solar and other ways that they can be a little bit more energy independent, I guess. And the really great success stories, I guess this is where the smart comes into it. They've actually, through this process, improved their governance and, operating these multi-million-dollar assets really well, both environmentally but also economically. And from that, we're seeing buildings that have improved livability outcomes as well. In terms of specific examples, we've got heaps, which is so exciting. One, I guess, that I might touch on is the Summit. It's a building in the CBD here in Sydney. And I just like this story because it's an example of a building manager and a community of owners who are really collaboratively working together. They've actually implemented really simple energy savings projects, most of which are just putting variable speed drives on their existing equipment. And through that, they've actually cut nearly $30,000 a year in their energy spending.
Wow.
With really quick payback periods. It's fantastic. They've also participated in a water fix program that we run in collaboration with Sydney Water, and that's saving them over $60,000 a year in water costs, which are obviously directly, attributed to each owner. And they've addressed their waste management. So they're engaging new tenants in recycling and waste management tours, and they're also diverting clothing from landfills. So they've got a new charity clothing bin, and the thousands and thousands of kilograms that they've avoided going into landfill, which is so great. And you can really see a sense of connectedness, amongst the whole community there, that they've achieve all these outcomes together, it's really fantastic.
And imagine the impact of that when it's spread across hundreds, if not thousands, of strata buildings. Do you know if there are other councils in New South Wales who have similar programs or are looking to model this program?
We are seeing in the last 6 to 12 months a lot more of an interest, and I think that's because finally local governments and governments in general are starting to recognise that strata communities are obviously so many of our residents, and also in some ways almost like a fourth level of government. It's really important that we invest into them, and having really good results and data come out of our city programs, I think has given other councils confidence that they can actually get great environmental outcomes along with providing services to their communities. So Waverley Council in the eastern suburbs, they've recently launched a really great program working with 10 of their buildings, and we've got interest increasingly from other councils in Sydney as well. I think with this new ratings system that I mentioned, the NABERS rating tool that's recently launched, I think we're on the cusp of nationally a lot more government investment and interest and acknowledgement of this sector, which is obviously really exciting.
Yep. Excellent and great to hear. You mentioned there, Kimberly, sometimes there is difficulty when you guys go into a building to do that intensive 12 months, difficulty getting things approved maybe, and maybe getting everybody on board. How do you overcome that? What is that objection? And are there any others that we can address and work on solving?
I think often people are potentially not clear on what some of the other co-benefits of improving the environmental performance of a building are. So we've found being really clear on what those economic benefits are is key, but also actually providing an example of alternative outcomes. So often people think, it's we can either choose to do this improvement project or do nothing. It's about showing to owners corporations, well, if you choose to do nothing, you're actually choosing these outcomes. You're choosing higher energy prices, you're not operating as efficiently. So being really, really clear and articulating what those benefits are, but also on a really practical level, having a platform where people can ask questions, clarify issues, and break down what they might see as risks has been really important. We're trying to assist wherever we can in getting that implementation happening more seamlessly. We provide sample motions, we attend strata committee meetings or annual general meetings, and it's about, I guess, establishing that dialogue between us and the owners' corporations to break down some of those misconceptions. So that's been really useful. And I think also in some of our larger buildings, getting building managers on board as a bit of a champion for some of these issues is also really important, and providing them with the knowledge and the training that they need to assist owners corporations and be really, really helpful to them in improving the efficiency of their buildings. So that's why we're running an 8-part building manager training series at the moment, which has been very well received. So,
is that something that is only in connection with Smart Green Apartments, or that's a standalone program for building managers?
Yeah, that's a standalone program, and we're seeing building managers from both within the city but also from other council areas coming along to that program. And our hope is that they'll take that knowledge back to their communities and start to improve the operations and efficiency there.
Yeah, excellent. I think that is so clever that you've really honed into building managers and recognised how important they are on the ground there. Well, of course, we have our strata managers, but they're not the people who are at the building potentially every day, as building managers are, connecting with the residents, providing that one-to-one service, and able to have a real influence on the direction of the building, particularly when it comes to these sustainability measures. So
that's it. And I think on strata managers, we've really seen this growth and this inclination to really embrace environmental and economic efficiency amongst strata managers as well. Over the last couple of years, some of our strata managers in the program have just really worked collaboratively with us to help explain some of the recommendations to owners corporations and to be really a part of that process. And I also think that as we're recruiting for new buildings currently, we're often relying on strata managers to disseminate the information and promote this program. So, yeah, we really acknowledge the active role that they take in engaging with owners to do this work.
Excellent. Now, you've mentioned there, Kimberly, the 2018 program is open. Where do our listeners need to go to get involved with the Smart Green Apartments program?
Sure. So it's a really easy website. It's smartgreenapartments.com.au. And when you go there, you'll see a link to an online application portal. And there's also a downloadable flyer so you can share information about the program with others in your building. There's also email addresses and phone numbers of myself and colleagues here at the city, and you can call us if there's anything that's unclear or you'd like more information. That page is it's a good resource. It links to other case studies and examples of what others have achieved in the program, which I think will help people to understand the benefits of participating. So, yeah, I'd really encourage owners, strata managers to apply, because the city will invest all the money that otherwise would be spent by the owners themselves on actually identifying where those opportunities for improvement are. And one other thing that I think is in the feedback we've been getting from the buildings who have participated, they really value the fact that this is a city-backed program, and the experts and the consultants we're sending in, we've vetted them and we know that they know strata, and that's really critical. So you can be really confident in the service that you receive.
Yeah, it sounds like a fabulous opportunity to basically get a done-for-you service. I would love for my own building to get involved in a program like that in the near future. So once again, fabulous that it exists and that it just seems to be growing and getting even better. So wonderful to hear all of that. Kimberly, you're on the podcast, you're a guest, you get the book question. What books have had the greatest impact on you and why?
Yeah, I loved this question. It's and it's a hard one, isn't it, to narrow it down? I'm a massive reader.
Right.
I have always been really passionate about the environment, which is cool that I've ended up working in that field. But one of my biggest heroes is Dr. Jane Goodall. So there's a book called In the Shadow of Man, and it's about her experience working with chimpanzees in Africa. And I read it when I was quite young, and it really resonated with me in terms of like that desire to act in a way that protects the environment and also to be a part of that conservation of the earth, really. So it's one that stuck with me, and as a bit of cementing of that desire to work in that field and to try and make a bit of a difference.
Yeah, she is a wonderful woman. Were you able to catch her when she was in Sydney? I think it might have been last year now or earlier this year. She spoke for Business Chicks and at one of their lunches, a very large women's networking organisation for women in business. And I was at that lunch, or maybe it was a breakfast, and she was so inspiring.
Actually, I wasn't at that one, but I did see her. I think it was the Hordern Pavilion. And that same year, or a couple of months earlier, I'd also seen David Attenborough speak. So
cool.
It was a good few months.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kimberly. With so much on your plate, all the best continuing your PhD studies. I look forward to catching up with you about that next time we see each other at one of our events. Please let us know if there's anything you want to add before we wrap up. I will make sure that the link to the application form, that website, is in our show notes, so our listeners can go and check it out via the Your Strata Property website. Anything you want to add?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak about our program, and also just encourage buildings to apply either for Smart Green Apartments or to check out any of the other offerings that the city has for strata communities as well. The Smart Green Apartments is for buildings within our local government area, but there's increasingly more resources for buildings anywhere. So I'd encourage buildings outside of the City of Sydney to go to their own council websites and look at what might be on offer. Also, the Green Strata website, greenstrata.com.au, is an invaluable resource for not only becoming more sustainable, but becoming more efficient and saving money. So I'd recommend checking out Green Strata as well. And the NABERS website if you're interested in getting a star rating, a simple star rating for your building.
Excellent. I will make sure all of those fabulous resources are in our show notes for our listeners. And I'll look forward to catching up with you again soon, Kimberly.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Your Strata Property, the podcast which consistently delivers to property owners reliable and accurate information about their strata property. You can access all the information below this episode via the show notes at www.yourstrataproperty.com.au. You can also ask questions in the comments section, which Amanda will answer in her upcoming episodes. How can Amanda help you today?